Hi, welcome back. In this recording, I will give context as to why, with more success, comes greater complexity. Growth creates complexity, and in turn, it's complexity that is the silent killer of growth. An economic Times study found that only 10% of companies grow sustainably and profitably. Yet feedback from over 2,000 management teams in that study was that only 10% believed that lack of growth opportunities was the problem. It was all about internal problems and challenges. If you are already scaling up, so you've seen 15% or higher annual growth in either turnover or headcount, you are likely already experiencing some of these challenges. It may already feel like you are trying to change the tyres on a moving car. You know you need to do something to avoid career and out of control, yet you can't afford to stop the car. It simply keeps accelerating. Or perhaps you feel trapped and stuck in a particular gear, and no matter how hard you try to accelerate, you do not seem to be moving faster. Alternatively, if rapid growth is your ambition, then you need to be prepared for the challenges that lie ahead. As by being prepared, you can either circumvent entirely or minimise the impact they have on your accelerated growth. So what are these internal obstacles? An explanation of the challenge scaling up businesses face, predominantly with management styles and leadership strategy, is Larry Greiner's growth model that predicts the 6 phases of growth and 5 crises that businesses typically face as they scale up. So let's visualize this on a diagram. The phases of growth are the columns, with businesses moving from left to right as they scale up in headcount and turnover, with axes of time and business size. As your business grows over time, you move through the stages of growth. The 6 growth phases that a business typically goes through are growth through creativity, then through direction, followed by delegation, coordination, collaboration, and lastly growth through alliances. As business transitions between different growth phases, the crises occur. These are crises of leadership, autonomy, control, red tape, and growth itself. The first 4 of these crises are all internal problems and challenges to overcome. The first evolutionary phase is growth through creativity. The business is focused on getting off the ground, becoming established, and not focused on effectiveness. The organisation is learning, launching new products and services, and for new businesses, the leaders are developing their skills. Communication is informal, and the employees are loyal. Organisational structure is flat, and the owner-manager is externally orientated, invested in new client acquisition. Greiner identified the first crisis as a business grows as the crisis of leadership. This is where the business starts to suffer from its informal nature of communication. Effectively, the business is now too big for the leader to get involved in everything, and so a need for clarity of direction is tackled through formation of a proper management structure. The founder may realise that they are not the best person to lead operationally, or may continue to lead, however, are now supported by more structure. Overcoming the crisis of leadership gives a business more direction and clarity, from which another phase of growth commences, the growth through direction phase. Directive leadership sees a more structured and functional system adopted. Growth now requires a greater level of delegated authority to lower level managers. However, higher level managers, those who have provided the directive leadership, are reluctant to have their authority diluted. This leads to a crisis of autonomy. If the founder is still the leader, they are likely to either be a hero or meddler, struggling to let go and share responsibilities, remaining caught up in routine management activities. For those businesses who hired new management, its creative staff who enjoyed the freedom of growth through creativity now become frustrated. This is the second crisis brought on by internal challenges. For businesses to move past this, a new growth phase based on delegation is required, driven by decentralisation, with a move to product teams or divisional or department structures. The next phase of growth is fueled by this delegation of responsibilities to lower level managers. With autonomy spreading through a business, senior leaders and managers lessen their involvement in routine operations. This reduces the level of two-way communication, and lower level managers become accustomed to working without the oversight or intrusion of senior management. This then leads to the next crisis or revolutionary challenge. This is the crisis of control, as senior leaders feel like they are becoming out of touch and losing control over their organisation. This is overcome through coordination. Growth is fueled by improved communications and standardised processes and reporting. However, organisations develop a thirst for data and information. So as the organisation increases in size, so does its bureaucracy. Efficiency and innovation become stifled by increased rules, procedures and administrative hurdles and hoops. This is known as the crisis of red tape. This red tape crisis is overcome and growth accelerated through an evolution of collaboration and simplification across the organisation. Increased emphasis is placed on the communication between managers and staff to solve problems. Focus is placed on greater teamwork, and often, mistakenly, layers of management are removed, now viewed as an unnecessary cost overhead and a barrier to growth, leaving a potential vacuum of leadership. This is a dangerous crisis point, as loyal key employees are likely to feel exhaustion and frustration as previously delegated responsibilities may now return. The final crisis is now one of growth itself. In the life cycle of an organisation or product, competition grows, external forces influence profit, and new markets are needed if sustainable growth is to be achieved. This requires moving either into new markets or seeking new distribution channels, such as partnerships, resellers, or perhaps more fundamentally, seeking either acquisition of other companies or being bought or merging with another organisation to open up new markets. So growth is now fueled by such alliances. Those businesses and owner-managers that recognise their leadership and organisational structures need to evolve and change as the business grows, who build autonomy and resilience into their operations, will outperform those who fail to adapt. These periods of crises, whilst a negative experience at that actual moment, should be viewed as catalysts for positive change. Their effect is to provide the momentum to shake up an organisation and communicate to all that a reset is required and a new direction set. Proactively preparing for the future through strategic thinking and execution planning, enabled by removing senior leadership from routine management activities, will keep businesses a step ahead and minimise the impact these growing pains businesses all experience, although the actual timing of when these changes will hit is harder to predict. So do any of these phases sound familiar? Understanding and appreciating where your business is in terms of organisational maturity can accelerate your growth by simply recognising and avoiding or minimising the next oncoming growing pain. For example, how much management information do you currently produce? As a leader, how much of it do you truly take notice of? How much effort is spent generating reports that are really just nice to have? Or are you stuck in the early phases as your business is too reliant on you to allow you the time to plan and execute your scaling up journey? This lesson is one of the most theory-based in the programme. It's for context, for you to be able to step back and reflect on your own business's development and maturity and your own role in either accelerating or holding back growth, dependent on whether you are still a directive leader, a leadership style that is needed early on in growing a business, but which can become an anchor holding you back as you try to scale up. We will discover your leadership style in a later module, but for now, reflect on where you think your business currently would place in Larry Greiner's growth model.